we are going to go into the Ask Me Anything. So Jeff, if you can turn us into a panel view, I will be asking the questions that you ask in the Zoom chat. So I'm not using Slack, I'm actually using the Zoom chat. So if you have any questions to ask, please post them there. And I will start off with a question, which is, for those of you working in performance, how did you get interested? Like, you're all working in performance indirectly or directly. What is it about performance that made you want to focus on this and basically apply to speak at a performance conference? Like, you're interested enough to come almost every year. Any one of you can take it.
I'll take it. Why not? So I gave that talk about growing up in a low-income stuff. So one thing I found really interesting is that the more I thought about it, I've always just struggled with performance. Like, even for my first phone, I'd be like, you know what? I got to install custom Android ROMs to make this run this one game. Or like, I had a netbook, let's install custom graphics drivers. And as I started developing, I was like, man, everything I write is too slow because I didn't know how to write code. And then so performance has always been this like overhanging thing with my entire technology life, I guess. So then it just kind of fell into the right place, and then life is weird and you end up here. So yeah.
Annie, not to put you on the spot, but you're actually doing performance, and on the working group. So you're obviously really committed. What got you interested first?
I mean, well, I 20 years ago, I started my professional career. I was working in video games, and the frame rate has to be 60 FIPS, and every 15 millisecond counts. And I just had so much fun. My office mate wrote a profiler for PlayStation 2 because there wasn't one, and like we would like go and look at like which system. We figured out how to break it down by systems. I own the AI system, and like there was some blips in the Pathfinder, and we redesigned the system. I wrote a Pathfinder like from scratch for PS2 that would like generate the pathfinding notes from the geometry, and like you could see that there would be blips. Like all of the AI used to like every couple seconds they would like try to reroute, and there would just be like this giant blip where all the AI reroutes that frame, and we would just scatter it between frames. And it was just really fun to like to be able to make those kind of small changes and see it in real time. It was really nice to have a predictable environment, like one PlayStation 2 on your desk, right? Where you can change it and then it fixes it for everybody. The web is a lot harder. But when I got to Google, it was only 2005, so it was like 15 years ago, and the web was really slow. And like I didn't even have a phone that I could access the internet on, and we were making these products like I worked on Google Docs, and it was just really exciting to be able to bring something like that to the world, but it needed to be fast. And so I just always really I got really excited about Steve Souter's work, and he was working on YSlow back then, and I showed our YSlow score to my manager, and like Yahoo gave us a D, and like he let me go work on it. So since then I've been really excited about web performance. Especially just the part where you can kind of bring something to people that weren't able to access it before. Like we're able to bring Google Docs to people that were never able to access Docs online, and now people are coming online on mobile phones in the next billion users markets. They've never been able to use the internet before, and we can make sure that they can access things. That's what really excites me about it.
Anyone else want to answer that question? It's harder when you have a microphone to actually pass from person to person.
I can go. So I kind of fell into performance work thanks to my former director at Etsy, Laura Hogan, who was really heavily involved in the performance community. She wrote a book called Designing for Performance, which I had read before I started at Etsy, and I kind of knew about her, and I knew that performance was important. And I came into Etsy doing design systems, and we had some restructuring, and Laura kind of threw me into this new project to improve the performance of our mobile product page. And that kind of started me down this journey of really digging into perf and figuring it out. And I applied to speak about that experience at the first Perf Matters, and had such an amazing time that we convinced management to make perf explicitly one of the goals of our team, along with front-end infrastructure and front-end architecture. So I've been able to stick with it, and it's kind of actually now the main thing that I've been focusing on in my job. So it's great. It ticks all the boxes of real user impact. You're really out there helping people, by reducing the amount of, data plan they have to pay for. You're getting the web out faster. It's helping our sellers who are small businesses to have more sales come to their shops. And it's just really, it's a detective story. You're constantly learning. There's always weird shit happening that you have to go dive in and like figure it out. And so that's why I love it.
We have a question from the audience. Sergey, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sergey Chernyshev, web performance engineer, organizer of New York Web Performance Meetup. I wonder what makes the performance and, frankly, accessibility, security, and a few other related topics so hard to sell and promote within organizations. Why is it such a challenge?
Because money. People want it to work fast, and it doesn't work that way in software engineering. Slow is fast. If you want to create quality, if you want to create lasting value, you have to methodically work through it. And that is not really how we've made capitalism work. People paid us way too much money as developers, as engineers, to ship it no matter what. If it happens to work, great, but it's very much a house of cards. I think there's also the thing that there's only so many hours in the day, and we have to cultivate a culture of trusting each other and trusting that we need a bunch of different kinds of expertise on our teams. We need people who care about and know about every single piece of this deeply, instead of rockstar unicorn ninjas who can do it all, but they can't do it all. They can only kind of do it all. They can only do the stuff that, and even then, not really. So I think we're learning. I want to say I'm hopeful that the developer community is waking up. Oh, we really want to do this for a lot longer. And the way we're going to do that is to create lasting value. And the lasting value seems to come in these ways. And we have research now to show that, as Jez's excellent talk demonstrated. I think that's really what's going to change it. That's my take anyway.
A lot of you work at companies where that's been successful because you are actually in performance and accessibility. So how do you think your companies came to that? Just as a follow-up to Melanie's answer, to get someone else to answer.
I can take like the bit on our end. So I think like my team originates from what we called an experimentation team, where we really focused on A/B testing and thinking about like what are improvements for the business as well as for the user experience, etc. And seeing what the impact is on the pure metrics that not necessarily a developer or product manager cares about, but like the metrics that you can send higher up the hierarchy. And one of the things that really helped us was putting a business value to the improvements on accessibility and on performance. Like we did an A/B test on switching the homepage from a really old monolithic Rails application to, hey, like let's service-side render this with Gatsby. And we saw like an increase in like how many people and like how varied the people, like we saw a big increase in the number of page views, but as well as like how we could access like in this like countries and people that would otherwise not be able to necessarily access our product. And that was one of the things that really enabled our team to internally sell like, hey, let's focus on this. Like we can, as much as this is an increase for all our users and for people in general, like this is the good thing to do. But also, like if there's pressure, like there is a big increase in like all your metrics coupled that really helped with us.
Did anyone else want to address the question? You're on mute, Vasanth.
Sorry, I can share some views on how things came about, at least with Walmart.com. So I think a couple of years back or so, we had a big push towards nailing the fundamentals, and we started looking into things from a holistic view of both the product journey, performance, accessibility, all the key things from that perspective. So in terms of selling it, it wasn't much of, it was more like, it was there, and everyone realized that this is something important. There was a push across the company to like make performance faster, which was really helpful for all of us. Estelle,
Hey.
I was on mute. We have Greg with a question. Greg Lockwood.
Yep. So I just wanted to know what one of the things that you're planning to take back to your day job and apply that you learned from another speaker's talk.
So who paid attention today and is going to actually implement something that they learned from someone else's talk?
I've been paying attention to all the talks.
Uh,
And I'm going to take like everything and bring it back. But for me, I think some of the highlights, all right, some of the highlights for me was Emily yesterday talking about observability. I think I want to go back and investigate. Can we bring all of our metrics and all of our traces?
That was today.
Or was that today?
Yes,
I don't.
like a month ago.
Oh my God, I've been awake since 6:30 a.m. Eastern time. It is now 8:12, so please forgive me. Yeah, I think a lot of the new metrics that folks from Chrome have come and talked about. Definitely, like we've been looking at implementing and sort of waiting for everything to be really a little bit more mature before we went off and invested in starting to pull it into our own tooling. So I'm excited to see things moving forward on some of the newer metrics. I think, some of the points that Melanie made about improving documentation, that's actually a conversation that I have set up already next week with the new folks who've taken over design systems about adding perf docs into our design system documentation. So I loved all of the examples that she gave. So yeah, basically, I don't know. I think I've got something from everybody that is going to help me out back at my day job.
I was going to add that there was a bunch of stuff in Vasa's talk that I'm excited to kind of, bring back. We're doing inside Lighthouse. We're working on a bunch of new kind of JavaScript bundle analysis work to help people understand what is inside these big JavaScript files. And so when Vasa was talking about kind of finding, big libraries that could be replaced with things that are much smaller and other optimizations, basically walking through like possible optimizations that other people could implement. I think those are things that, we can add to the tooling as well. So I'm excited to walk through those in a little bit more detail.
Totally. And I learned a lot from pretty much all talks, actually, to be very honest. Definitely, starting off with Andrew's talk, he mentioned about how he took a different kind of approach to come up with a number. And even we had this same struggle too, like every time when we are trying to optimize for a specific metric, then there are some other metrics which we discover. So even our metrics evolved over time, actually, the ones which we were trying to focus on, but then we finally stuck to our custom TTI metric. That is one thing. And Jez' talk was super inspiring. Thank you for sharing your insights. Definitely, it helped me a lot to learn various things. And mentions about Vasanth, I haven't really followed up much on that. So Aaron, I'm really curious to know more on things over there. And especially some of the Paul mentioned about a new metric. So I'm really excited, and I've learned a lot from all of these things. So definitely going to like take it back to my team, and we're going to like dig into most of these things.
I'm going to add more jokes to everything, thanks to Paul. I thought I was pretty good at jokes, but I think Paul's showed me today that I'm going to level up my game a little bit there. So
for me, I think the best takeaways for me were actually the first two talks of the conference. My team is currently working on a new app, and we're thinking about what performance metrics we want to track and monitor, which ones will be valuable for our customers. And there were several points in the first two talks to help us think about that and identify what's going to be helpful.
Anyone else? I learned so much, and also I missed a few talks, so I'm going to have to listen to some more. So if Jonathan has a question, if you would like to ask it.
I think we don't have him on audio.
Oh.
Oh, there he is.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry about that, Jonathan. I thought I promoted you.
Oh, no worries. So my question is related to experimentation. That was mentioned yesterday, today, even during the last talk. So one of the issues that I can see in the company I work is that sometimes people is in a hurry, let's say always in a hurry, for the feature to be delivered. So it's hard to sell that we need to fail and that we need to be able to have experiments so we can learn and hopefully deliver something better later. So the same problem, we had the same problem with performance some years ago. We were able to show the value of working on performance, but when it comes to experimentation, it's hard because they don't allow or they don't want to, spend time on that kind of thing. So what suggestions do you have regarding that?
So I think the problem is so many organizations are still very command and control, and people think that their worth as kind of leaders and management is around like telling someone to do something and then that thing getting done, and then yes, we did the thing. And I think there needs to be a lot more focus on what are the outcomes, what are the measurable outcomes we're trying to achieve, both for our company and for our teams. And then letting teams work out how to achieve those outcomes. And that's honestly super hard to do, like super hard to focus. Instead of like our worth is we delivered so many features, or we delivered so many features so fast, or instead of that, like, well, why do you deliver those features? And this is a good way that I've used personally to try and change people's frame. It's like, we want to deliver this feature, well, why? And assuming you can get them to think about what the feature is supposed to do, then you can keep asking why and shift to like, what's the business outcome or the organizational outcome that the feature is supposed to enable. And then when you can start having a conversation about that, then you can say, well, listen, that's what you care about. So what you should be trying to get the teams to do is, I mean, you've paid a lot of money for these teams. They have brains and imaginations. It's very unlikely that you will come up with the best possible idea to achieve that outcome, especially before you've even tried to implement it and see if it works or not. So maybe let's communicate the outcomes and then use these amazing teams that you've spent money on and gathered, and let them experiment with ways to do it. But it's a big change, and as with all big changes, I think the way you've got to do that is piece by piece. You can't just like have the organization change to that completely different paradigm of thinking, except incrementally.
We've had a big shift on Chrome over the last few years, really moving towards A/B testing type experiments for launching things. And I think that a couple things were really key to that. I'm going to echo a lot of what Jez just said. You can really get people focused around outcomes. Like, okay, you probably have key metrics already, and then you have like these set of features that you say are going to drive them, and you don't actually connect them yet. But if you start launching A/B tests and experiments, and it doesn't matter what it is, you start small and you try, especially variations of different things, and then you can say, oh yeah, remember our key metric, here's the real user monitoring, and you can see this A/B test shifted it by this much, and then we made this other variation and it's that much. And once you have a couple of good examples of where these things worked and how they shifted the metrics, then you can really start saying like, hey, we actually know that we're shifting the metrics by doing this. So like Jess said, you don't have to shift the whole organization at once. You just have to find some really good examples and making sure that even before you're doing A/B testing, that you have like those key metrics and those outcomes that you really want, and then doing the A/B testing should be able to show that you can change them, or also show that something maybe wasn't having the impact that you thought it was, and so try to really highlight those examples.
And I just want to add to Annie, like A/B testing is amazing, but if you don't have, if that's hard to do, any kind of user research will do. Just like make sure you're doing user research and then finding out about whether those things, whether those features actually are achieving the desired outcomes, and designing experiments to test that using some kind of user research. And A/B testing is great if you can do it, but if you can't, just some kind of user research.
That's it for the attendee question. So I'm just basically, everyone gave a talk and they had to speak on a particular topic, but sometimes there was also something else you really wanted to say. So I'm going to go around the room based on the view that the viewers have who are on YouTube, which I assume is the same one as in this room, and just ask if there's anything you want to add or share. And I will start with Katie, because she's in the top left after me.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, what do I want to share? So I think one of the things that I have been thinking about a lot and wanting to get my act together and write a blog post or give a talk about, and has been really cemented from this talk, and I think particularly from Aaron and from Taylor's talk, which is that, in tech, we're talking a lot right now about diversity, inclusion when it comes to the makeup of our companies and the makeup of our teams. And to me, I think that performance and accessibility are how we practice what we preach when it comes to diversity and inclusion in the code that we write and the code that we're shipping to our users. And yeah, and I think just a lot of the stuff that everyone has talked about throughout the conference has really cemented that for me. And I'm going to have to go back and maybe give a talk on it next year. That'll be my talk for next year, Estelle.
Well, I couldn't get you to submit one this year, so I had to make you work the entire time.
No, I didn't have the energy this year for a talk. So
look what happened. Vasanth, can you, to put you on the spot, do you want to go next?
Yeah, definitely. I think from this talk, one thing which from this, like one of the things which we shared in my talk today was how we worked around certain constraints of not changing a lot of things in the current application, how we can actually improve the performance. But based on other talks which I'm seeing, I have a lot of ideas and things which really inspired me to think about how we can do it slightly differently. So one thing which I want to take away from this conference is definitely more ideas in terms of how we can re-architect our application in different ways, and probably try out a few things. We briefly touched, looked into service workers, at least for CART, and we were trying to evaluate benefits of it. Same thing with web workers. A lot of ideas which we briefly looked into, and at that point we didn't see it giving us enough push for our application at that point. So now I want to go back and look into some of these things, and hopefully do more talks and write a lot more about this.
Excellent, thank you. Yep, I'm still on. Thomas, did you want to go next?
Sure. I think one of the things that I will definitely take with me into my day job, but also just into my softer skills when it comes to the tech world is I think every one of us really especially me, I'm a big fanboy of everything that is hip and new, and everything that looks really shiny when you see it. When people present it, it can be well, this is the next thing. And I think one of the points that Phil said yesterday is go back a little bit and just look at what is the one thing, what is the right thing to use and what is the right thing to build, rather than what's the most fun thing to build. What's the most the shiniest object in the room. I think that's from the technical side, the thing I will take with me. And then from the non-technical side, I will at some point start playing Animal Crossing and try to catch a stringfish so I can tell Katie that I caught one.
You can't get a stringfish after today. You have to wait until the fall. Last night was the last night, which is why it was such a big deal.
Yeah,
so
then
I'll
I'll
wait
have to.
until the fall.
I guess I'll have to rethink whether I will start Animal Crossing yet at that point, I guess.
There's probably other like rare fish that you can catch right now. I just haven't had a chance to play and find them yet.
So I'm a little bit disappointed that Animal Crossing came across stronger than the panel discussion we had yesterday, but Jez, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I guess I just want to echo what Thomas said. I think like most of the interesting stuff that I've kind of found out in my career has been by being put on teams that were not at all glamorous and interesting, and solving problems. So like the continuous delivery book was basically being put on this 6-person team our job was to like fix the build basically. And so all the stuff that went into the continuous delivery, and that was not considered a good role. But like all the stuff that went into the continuous delivery book came out of that. And I think like, especially now, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed and that you can't like do anything or change anything. And whenever I feel like that, Jesse Robbins, who used to run availability at Amazon, he was master of disaster at Amazon on his business card. He had this saying that I really like to return to, which is don't fight stupid, make more awesome. And thank you all.
Aaron, you are the next on the
I'm next.
screen on the screen I'm looking at. So
nice, awesome. From my talk, I guess other things I'd like to say. I would like to say that WebAssembly is cool. I talked about that a little bit. What's it called? I'm super extroverted, so like please reach out to me on Twitter or whatever medium you use. I will get back to you and love to talk about it. Another thing is I would say is I know a lot of us are more front end based too. WebAssembly is a little hard to talk about because it can do so many things, and it kind of, I think personally, shifts the way we think about web applications. Because before, because of performance constraints and things, it's kind of like, okay, you know, I'm building this e-commerce site or something. Like, where does WebAssembly apply for me? And you know what? It's some places it's probably not going to. Just in the current way we build our web applications, because we've kind of just started subconsciously building like, okay, well, I know I can't run this thing because it's going to be too slow. WebAssembly really lifts the cap off that edge. So as much as it's going to help improve apps today, I think it also helps with just like future thinking, like why don't we run games in the web, and why don't we run video editors in the web and things like that. And a lot of the reason usually is because of performance. So definitely if you've had this idea that you were like, oh, I can't build on the web before, because I've had plenty of those, I think WebAssembly might be something you want to look at. Or if you're just looking at help paths in your app and you want to help them out. So yeah, WebAssembly is cool. Reach out to me. That's all I want to say. Yeah.
Annie, you're up next.
I had a lot of really fun conversations during the breaks, you know, and it was really interesting because I come at it from like a really different perspective of like working on a browser day to day, and I felt like it was just really great to be able to connect with web developers and, you know, like really my experience. And I'm just trying to, you know, like as I take away, just trying to figure out how to, you know, connect better with the community so I can understand the problems better.
Trent, and then Melanie, and then Taylor, and then Paul, and then we went through them all. So Trent.
I guess the one thing that I would just say is encourage people to go mess around with code, find stuff that interests you, write about it, share it. For me, I'm not super into performance. Like this is not stuff I do day to day, but I really like working with web workers. I think there's a lot of cool tech there. And so I just decided that that's what I was going to use and submitted a talk about it and share that information and that excitement with other people. So.
Melanie?
Yes, be so excited they can't ignore you. That's my approach.
I didn't know that was intentional, but yes.
It's easier, right? It's easier to talk about these kinds of things in a really excited way and be excited about things. I've always struggled with the, do I threaten lawsuits for accessibility, or do I talk about, this is so awesome, we can increase the number of users we have and all that kind of stuff. So someone told me once, make the toxic irrelevant. And that's what I do a lot of. and I just kind of try to approach that with things with that mindset. Like, I just want to be more awesome and make things better. I think I would have liked to talk a little bit about how we're getting developers to adopt tooling at LinkedIn, especially. So I think that might be where my next talk goes. Thanks for making me think about that. I have adopted pilot tests for internal developer projects, especially when I build new tools that I want them to try out. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's kind of like A/B testing internally almost, kind of. So it's a whole different kind of user base to think about.
Thank you. And Taylor, do you want to give us some final thoughts?
Hey, everybody. So I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate the absolutely wonderful community that Estelle has built at Perf Matters here. It's my first Perf Matters ever. And I can really tell like how much love and care she's put into bringing us all together. And I'm absolutely so impressed that all of us are in this room from around the world in a time like this. It's been a tough like couple of weeks for me, but I feel really confident and connected, knowing that there's so many wonderful people out there. So here's to us, here's to all the Zoom mates, whether that's pets or plants or kids, and take care of yourselves and take care of each other.
And last but not least, we have Paul.
One thing I was going to say was that I learned. I know what I know what I know because I learned it from people who were generous and generous enough to share their time with me and share what they learned. So I encourage everyone to do the same. Make sure that you learn something, you're sharing it out. Also, as far as how I got into performance, that had a lot to do with people taking the time to walk me through how to read traces and things like that. And I'd encourage you, if you like have a talent for, as you feel comfortable and happy with digging into these things, to help share this with your more junior colleagues, and just kind of spread the knowledge, because they certainly appreciate it, and it makes the whole thing work really well.
Well, that kind of there are two questions still in the chat room, but this kind of concludes our talk. So if people want to take it into the Katie Google Hangout, I do want to let the tech people go have dinner and the captioner probably go to sleep, and Katie still has meetings tonight. So thank you all. Thank you so much. This was awesome. It was a better conference than I could have ever imagined. And it's the speakers that made it. Every single talk was amazing. I've never gone to a conference where every single talk was amazing, except for the ones I organize. No.
Thank you, Estelle. You're amazing.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.